Okay, so this is the 2019 Stats Clinic for NYS 5 and Boys Lacrosse. My name is Kyle Bear-Wilson. This is my father, Paul Wilson. We've been around for a long time. Paul started the program here in Pittsburgh as a coach. And then when he retired from coaching, we started working more exclusively at the sectional level. You know, he was chairman or assistant chairman before then. I took stats for him when I was in high school, went to Merciers, took stats for them, and then when I got out of school, I started doing this. For the last 3 years, I've been pretty much on the girls' side, trying to get the girls' website up and running. I go to a lot of girls' games, but I still kind of bring back to where I started, which was the boys and boys stats. So we put together this program for the last couple of years as a way to, in the beginning of the season, go over some of the basics, including ethics, the NCAA stat manual, which goes through each stat that's accepted at the college level. There are a few changes that get made as it relates to the rules changes between college and high school. What are the definitions of each stat, and then how to report the stats. Part of what we do is show the form that we use to collect stats, which we like, although in the past we've made it easier to report that way. Now we just take the stats in whatever form you guys kind of send them in at. One of the new changes of last season was a digital reporting form, which we'll get into at the end, that allows coaches or trusted statisticians to put in their own information. First category we kind of talk about very briefly is the ethics of reporting. We have an ethical duty to report accurately the history of what took place. So what you're trying to do is have an adequate record of the game and of what happened during the game. So one of the most important aspects, and the thing we talk about a lot during this that I'll keep touching back on, is finding the correct answer, but also finding the spirit of the answer. You know, so in ground balls, I'll talk about the rule, the black and white rule, and then the spirit of the rule, and it's important to stay consistent to that while keeping in mind both what the rule actually is and what it's trying to tell you. And it's important to document those facts, because once things get pushed up or made higher, once things get incorrectly entered, it stops being meaningful. You know, having a team that reports 75 saves in a game doesn't make it meaningful to compare to each other, both to your own performance in another game, to other schools, to other leagues and other districts, to other sections. So it's important to accurately record what happened during the game. First thing we say is be professional. When you're on scene, you shouldn't be swearing, you shouldn't be yelling at officials or coaches, you shouldn't be coaching. It's okay to be excited that your team scored, to be excited about a good play, but there's a fine line between that and being a coach, about yelling at players, about being derogatory or down-putting. This is still high school athletics, and your role is important and part of the coaching staff, but it isn't necessarily being a coach or being a parent at that point. Focusing on the play. We see this less in adults and more in high school age kids, but again, you're there for a purpose, which is to watch. Don't get distracted talking to your friends or, you know, being on your phone or looking at other things. You are there to watch the game and watch the play. Asking for help is also a key point. You're going to have somebody from the other team there with you if you don't have your own partner. If you can't see something or missed a play or got screened out or couldn't quite read a number, ask. The odds that they saw it are higher. One of the things that I'll often do on scenes, if I know they scored a goal and I didn't see who it was, I'll ask the kid. They know who scored, especially if they just came off the field. Even if it wasn't them, oh, that was Johnny. Okay, what number is Johnny? 12. Okay, we'll write down 12. Their best time to figure out information you don't have is right now, right there on the field. To say, I'll work on it later, I'll figure it out later, I'll send it in, we'll get it next week, you're just making life harder. Get it while you're right there. Figure out somebody who saw it. No padding the stats goes into what I just said. We had a situation a couple years back. This is a story we've used many years in a row now. I was at a game keeping stats. I'm at the bench. I watched the stat girl, whose boyfriend is the goalie, get to the end of the quarter and give him two more saves. So I knew in the game he had 6. I knew that she made him have 10. And when the coach sent in the stats to Paul and I, he had 13. So everybody along the way was just giving him a few little more. And maybe one doesn't matter. It kind of does. But when you start snowballing that, he's now 6 to 13. He more than doubled his saves off people trying to just pad the numbers. This is why it's important to adequately record what happens. Okay, we're going to move into the NCAA manual now. But the first thing we're going to talk about is clears. In the NCAA manual, which is available online and is also available on the website, the section on clears was expanded this year. Almost all of it relates to shot clock, which is not currently, nor do I expect in the future, to be a part of high school lacrosse. So as a result, some of those rules just aren't applicable to us. The main ones we look at involve the definition of a clear. The philosophy behind a clear is defined as starting with possession of ball in your defensive area and moving it into the offensive restraining area. Okay? So, anytime a clear can only begin when the ball is picked up by the defense behind the red line, which is where your goalie is, so the defensive area. Okay? So, if a shot comes off and you come out of bounds up here by the wing area and you start on the wing area, this is not a clear. A clear has to begin behind the restraining line or go behind the restraining line. So if you start here and are turned back, you can then start a clear back here. It doesn't start when play resumes, but it starts when you cross behind the restraining line. You then have to bring the ball, either carrying or passing or even through a penalty. It has to then come into the green offensive restraining area. The side line or the wings are not a full clear until you are inside the box, which is usually denoted by the official raising a single hand to tell his colleagues that he has seen somebody step into the box. Okay? So a clear is not stepping over the midfield line. A clear is not going past the offensive restraining line. And a clear does not begin if you are already in front of your defensive restraining line. Will that make sense? Mm-hmm. One caveat to this is if you are man down, all clearing rules don't count. You cannot fail a clear if you are man down. If you're both man down, so it's 9 on 9, normal clearing rules apply. But if you have less men than your opponents, you cannot fail a clear. Okay? So the next step, that's the overwhelming philosophy. Now it gives examples that kind of illustrate what we just talked about. The clear should only be credited when you pass the offensive restraining line and are able to make an offensive play. A successful clear the moment the offensive player enters the attack area. Okay? So this does say that there is one extra caveat that I kind of missed. If you come all the way down here and are still outside the restraining box and you take a shot that is considered to be, technically it's any shot at the cage that the officials claim is a shot, you can still successfully complete your clear. The odds of that happening are usually rare because in this picture it looks a little closer than it is. If you've seen it actually played, that's a tough angle. A lot of kids aren't going to take that shot, but that is a situation where you technically don't have to step in for it to count. This is what I just said. When you're a man down, you cannot fail a clear. Article 3 relates to charge turnovers, which are not tracked by the website, but are sometimes tracked by your school districts. A charge turnover is what we call a loss of ball. It's when your team loses possession of the ball. All failed clears have to have somebody responsible for failing the clear, either a person or the team as a whole, what they call a team charge turnover. If a player, and see this Article 4 is going to be contradicted by Article 5 or 6. Regardless of position on the field, if the player is attempting a shot, a successful clear should be awarded. And that's mostly true, except for the goalie part that we're about to go into next. If a player shoots from the defensive box and the shot goes wide, credit a successful clear and a shot. If a player shoots from the midfield and the shot is saved, create a successful clear and a shot. That's rephrasing exactly what it just said in two different examples. No matter where you are on the field, if you shoot, you are credited with a successful clear, even if you miss the cage. If a player shoots from in the defensive box in desperation to beat the clock, do not credit the team with a shot or a clear attempt unless the shot was on goal, and in that case, credit a shot to the player, a successful clear for the offensive team, and a save for the goalie. This is saying that last minute, Hail Mary, I'm going to do whatever I can, shouldn't count as a shot and subsequently a clear because it isn't the intent. If he gets really close, they're not going to take it away from the goalie. So I think in their heads they went, well, we have to give him a save. Well, if we have to give him a save, we have to give him a shot. If we have to give him a shot, we have to give him a clear. Which kind of makes sense why they stipulate that a shot on is different from a shot that missed. I think if they had their own way, they'd say none of it counts, but nobody wanted to get mad at a goalie. 15 confuses it even more. If a goalkeeper throws a ball to the other end of the field to beat the clock, and the opposing goalie catches it, not saving it, and throws it back to the other end of the field to beat the clock, nothing happens. What this doesn't say is the previous rule still applies to saves. So if the goalie shoots it, this goalie catches it, but constitutes a save, and then heaves it back, and that one constitutes a save, you're still applying 14 before you apply 15. This is if the goalies are outside of the cage, if the goalies are not making saves, nobody's doing anything. You're playing catch. So this is kind of what we just went over. The goalie makes a save and begins to clear the ball. He passes it to a midfielder who crosses the midfield line. At this point, is this a successful clear? No. Team A starts to clear, but the ball is knocked out of their stick. A midfielder on Team A picks up the loose ball, runs it into his goal area. Is this a failed clear and then a successful clear, or one successful clear?
Where do you pick the ball?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but I should phrase that.
Successful.
Once a ball is knocked out of their stick, if neither team gains possession, which I guess I could have said more clearly in this, it is a continuation of the first clear. You don't stop a clear until the other team has gained possession of the ball.
Team B never gained possession.
Team B never gained possession.
Correct.
So it's the same clear
Same team
going.
gets it, so it doesn't matter where he loses.
It doesn't matter where he
Gets it,
picks it up.
as long as the other team didn't get it
Correct.
in the middle.
So as long as possession doesn't shift, you can pick up a loose ball near the midfield line, and it's still a continuation of the same clear coming through.
So actually, you could have a ground ball in the midst of the clear.
Correct. The defenseman knocks down a patch which deflects out the front of the goal area. He picks it up and runs into the offensive goal area. Is this a clear? The answer to this one's no. This is the ball, the possession did not start until they were outside the front of the restraining area. So just because he checked it while it was still in the box, Team A didn't gain possession of the ball till they were outside of the box or in front of the restraining line. So it does not count as a clear. Checking it, it's not where you check it, it's where you gain possession of the ball. The defenseman knocked down the patch which deflects to the right of the goal area. So it's the same scenario, except this time you're still behind the restraining line. This one is a clear. So again, it's all about where you gain possession of the ball. Now we're into shots. Any ball propelled by an offensive player towards the goal is considered to be a shot. The ball does not have to be propelled from your stick. It can be kicked or otherwise physically directed, which is poorly phrased. But anytime you're attempting to score a goal, you're sending the ball towards the goal, that's constituted as a shot. The statistician should take care to award shots only when possession of the ball can reasonably be said to have been occurred by ricochet. Or by ricochet. This is basically saying that you can't accidentally shoot, you have to mean it. A ball that enters the goal propelled by the offensive team must be a shot, must be a goal. Now we're into accident. Anytime you shoot, anytime that you're going to say it's a goal, which comes up in the goal section, you must have a shot. You can't have a goal without a shot. You have to have a shot associated with this goal. Propelled by the offensive team. An own goal doesn't get a shot, but that's, again, a very small subsection of goals when the defense scores on itself. A ball that ricochets off another player is credited as a goal by the player who is credited as a shot by the player deemed to have scored the goal. A ball hits another player on the way to the goal, it changes how that goal is scored. And so it's trying to cover itself by this. So the person who scores the goal gets the shot. A defensive goal, you don't give the defense a shot on themselves. That kind of makes sense. You're not trying to punish the defense as much as you're trying to record that no offensive player had a hand in this. One of the most common misconceptions comes from shots on goal. So This is actually the definition of a save in the wrong section. So a save is any shot that would have been a goal if the goalie wasn't present. Okay? So you take a shot and you miss the cage. That's a missed shot. That one's easy. You take a shot and it's a goal, or it would have been a goal if the goalie wasn't there. That's a shot on cage. All shots on cage are only two things. You're either a goal or a save. It's the only way. This one's nice because there are no ifs, ands, or buts. It's a shot on goal is a goal or it is a save. And a save is anything that would be a goal if the goalie wasn't there. Goals. The goal should be credited to the player who shot the ball, scoring a goal for the offensive team. In certain situations, a team goal can be credited when the defense scores on itself. If there's any doubt, any possible way this could be an offensive goal, give it to the offense. You should only give it to the defense when there's nothing else you can do. You know, if it's a guy passes it and the defense kind of hits it and he kind of kicks it and it kind of goes in, give it to the offense. If you can make a justification in your head, even a little, that this could be an offensive play, make it an offensive play. A shot that strikes an offensive player and deflects into the goal should be credited to the player who last touched the ball. The player credited with the goal must also be credited with a shot, and the original shooter should be credited with a shot that missed because it hit somebody else, and not an assist. So, historically, they tried to make this rule, well, did he mean it? Did he not mean it? Did the guy shooting mean to bounce it off him or not mean to? Did he go like this with his head and then they're like, no. So now it's the last player to touch the ball gets the goal, gets the shot associated with that goal, and the guy who hit him gets a miss. Okay? A ball entering the goals that appears to have been a pass should be counted as a shot and a goal for the player who made the pass. So again, this is what Paul mentioned earlier. If you're passing into the crease and the kid's not paying attention, or the sun gets in his eyes and it misses, and then it goes past him and it goes past the goalie and it goes in, you get a shot. You get a goal, you get a shot, even though you didn't mean it. Which again kind of goes against the initial intent of shots, that you have to mean it. But again, this is also kind of like the rule we talked about earlier where you have to go backwards. You can't say it's not a goal. So if it's a goal, it has to be a shot, so you have to get credit for it, even though we're telling you that you should. A team goal will be credited to the defensive player. Again, you don't want to do this, but if you have to, you don't give the player a stat, you just give it as a team stat. You don't call the defenseman out to say, Joe Schmo scored the goal. Okay, an assist. Assists are probably one of the most difficult topics that people have. Parents love their son to get assists. Everybody wants to get assists. They want to use whatever definition of assists makes it best for their kid to have 117 assists. The philosophy behind an assist is, did this person help make the goal? Did something they do help? And that's kind of the most basic level of what we're looking at, and the most basic of all the other rules. Did something you do matter? Okay? So, there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to some of the ones that are most famous. It's not 3 steps, or 2 seconds, or dodges, or any of that. It all comes down to, did you help? Okay? An assist should not be credited when the goal scorer dodges a player unless you think that part of the dodge, part of the pass, was more important than the dodge. So again, this comes down to why or how the goal was scored. If part of what you're doing was a routine pass and the guy, you can see it in his eyes, he catches the ball and he goes, I'm going to dodge now. And he goes in and he dodges his guy and he scores. That pass didn't mean anything to him. If you get to some of the higher end districts, some of the teams that have won a lot of championships in our area, you can see this guy decided he was going to dodge when the ball was 2 passes away. And he knew the pass was going to come up to his buddy, and he was already going to be going, and his buddy was going to hit him, and he was going to take those last 2 steps around the corner and shoot and score, and he decided that well before. And part of that pass was, he planned that pass into his dodge. It wasn't, I got the pass and then I started to dodge. in that case, it should be an assist, even if the culmination of his dodge is after. You know, he needed that assist. He needed that ball to come at that point. Article 1, if the pass led to the goal, then you have an assist. The only person who can get an assist is the person who touched the ball first, or touched the ball last. So you can't say, even if it makes sense, this all started because Johnny, the goalie, had this amazing outlet pass, and then he passed it one more time, but it was really Johnny did all the work. It has to be the person right before, immediately before you touched it. Or no one. Those are your only two options. Immediately before or no one. Goal is scored when the ball deflects off an offensive player, can have an assist. Here's what I thought was going to be Article 4. If in your opinion, not the scorer's opinion, but the statistician's opinion, the player whose action caused the ball to deflect was them attempting to do this. So this is a very, very rare scenario that shouldn't happen in a day-to-day pass. But if you have two guys who all week are saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to sit there, and you're going to pass it in, and then I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to hit the side, it's going to go in the corner. You know, and they're planning this, and they're making it, and his intent was to give him the ball so that he could hit it with the side of his stick, or with his head, or with his foot, or with anything. Then it could be a goal to the guy who touched it last, because it has to be the guy who touched it last, and an assist to the other guy. This is a very rare circumstance, and most of the time will not fall into something you're going to see. But if everybody meant for it to happen the way it happened, you can give them an assist. Okay, now we're into saves. I said this earlier, but I'm going to repeat it just because we're in the save section. A save is anything that would be a goal if the goalie wasn't there. It's actually a pretty easy definition, but it's just not what we're used to hearing if you haven't done this for a while. Would this have gone in if there was no goalie? And again, we'll get a bunch of examples. Hitting the pipe, it wouldn't have gone in. He could be over on the bench. If you hit the pipe and it goes over out of bounds, that's not a goal. So it's not a save. If the ball is going to, dribble towards the goalie and would go in the line, and he puts his stick down and it goes into a stick, that is a save. I hate giving goalies those saves, but that is a save. He stopped it from going in. He deserves credit, even if he didn't do anything but scoop up the ball. A save also has to come from an offensive propellant. So that defensive we talked earlier, where it would have been an own goal, the defenseman passing it back to the goalie, and it's going to miss, and he has to make this valiant effort to whoo. You still can't have a save off your own guy. It's got to come from the offense. This is the longer phrasing of what I like to say. If it's focused on what would have happened if the goalie wasn't there. The tendency in a lot of newer statisticians is to inflate saves. We've had a bunch of people over the years who believed various things, some of which were if the goalie touched the ball, it was a save. We had a story that Paul likes to tell that involved a parent of a goalie who believed that if it wasn't a goal, it was a save. So if you missed by 30 feet, he would say it was a save, because if it wasn't a goal, it's a save.
Kid had amazing stats.
Those were his only options. Consistent. Goalie saves is probably, as much as assists are probably the hardest for parents to get, goalie saves are probably the most inaccurately represented. Offensive efforts that the goalie prevents are considered saves. If the goalie is in the crease, no one else can have a save. A blocked shot by a defenseman is not considered a save unless the defenseman is in the crease, except in Section 5 where that's illegal.
In New York State, you can't.
It's now New York State. So this is the difference between the college rules and the high school rules. The minute that a defenseman steps inside the cage, or steps inside the crease, or pretends to be a goalie, or has the intent that he's going to pretend to be a goalie, the officials are required to stop the game and stop him from putting himself in a position to do that. Article 3, this goes into pipes. I think maybe 3, 4, and 5 are all kind of the same. The basic gist all comes back to would it have gone in. So a shot that hits a pipe and bounces into the goal is a goal. A shot that hits a pipe and bounces out of a goal is not a save or a goal, because it wouldn't have been either. Nobody could be there, and that's when pipes happen. A shot that hits a pipe, then hits the goalie, then goes in the goal, is a goal. A shot that hits the pipe, then hits the goalie, then would have gone in the goal, but the goalie's like super Mr. Fantastic bendy and makes a save. You're not going to see that. But again, that's a stop. It would have gone in, not because it hit the pipe, but because it bounced off the pipe, then him, then he stopped it. When a goalie catches a ball outside of the 6x6, is that a save because he caught it?
No.
No. If the goalie stops it from rolling in, it's a goal, or it's a save, sorry. So this is the difficulty that we talked about earlier. If you feel, in your opinion, that the goalie stopped the ball, had complete control of the ball, and then oops, he's dropped it in, you have to go team goal. If there's any part of you that says, well, you didn't quite have it all, give it to the offense. Goalie stops a shot before it goes in, it dribbles in. This is kind of the counter we just talked about. So the ground ball philosophy involves any ball that's in the possession of either team that comes into possession of the other team, that's going to give you a ground ball. So that's why the goalie wants a ground ball. Nobody owned it when it was in the middle of the air. He caught it. Now he owns it. When you pick it up off the ground ball on a face-off, nobody owned it. Now you owned it. When you knock it out of a kid's stick, you pick it up. Nobody owned it. Now you own it. You started with the ball, and your team picks it up. What happened in the middle can dictate if it counts as a ground ball. So, if I have the ball, and I drop the ball, and nobody's near me, and then I pick up the ball, it's not a ground ball. Nobody was near me. If I drop the ball, and nobody's near me, and Joe and Paul picks it up, it's not a ground ball. If I drop the ball, and somebody from the other team comes up and tries to fight me for the ball, and I pick up the ball, it's not a ground ball. But if Paul picks it up, the ground ball
It's a
is.
ground ball.
You lose it if you are the one who caused it to drop with no pressure on you. You can't pick up your own ground ball ever. If I lose the ball because someone's pressuring me, I can get my own ground ball back. It all comes down to contesting, which is kind of what I kind of talked about without saying it. Sometimes you can fight against not the other team, which is a little weird. But if the ball is heading out of bounds and you race up and stop it, and it would have gone out if you hadn't stopped it, you can still get a ground ball because the contest is between you and the sideline. Contested nature talks about to a sideline or an end line, or those types of situations. A shot doesn't fall into that situation. It's only a pass because a shot, it gets backed up. You can keep possession. So you can't, if you race a shot to an end line, you don't get a ground ball for that. There was a team that did that for a while. A loose ball that is not contested and would not go out is not a ground ball just because it's in the middle of the field. If I am always ahead of Paul, or a good example is somebody who's man down where Paul doesn't even move. The ball goes down, the defense doesn't go anywhere. And I have all the time in the world, it's just me. That's not a ground ball. A ball is on the ground, the same team picks it up with no challenge. It's not a ground ball. A ball is about to roll out of bounds where he stops it. If you stop it from going out of bounds, it does count. The ball is shot past the outbound. The closest player goes. Do they get a ground ball? No, not unless they follow one of the previous rules. Okay. Now we're into takes and loss of balls, which are turnovers. So a take is anytime I take the ball from you and my team gets the ball. You can only have a take or a cause turnover if your team ends up with the ball. If you do an amazing strip where you strip it off of them and take the ball away, but then they pick it back up, you don't get anything. If a single player is judged primary responsible for causing that ball to come to his team, he gets a take. Cause turnover is credited when a player's positive actions takes it away from the opponent. So if they lose the ball, that doesn't mean somebody took it from them. But if I take it from them, that means somebody lost it. There can be more losses than takes, but there can't be more takes than losses. If I take it from you, I had to take it from somebody. Missed shots aren't turnovers. Failed clears are by definition turnover. It's somebody's fault, and if it's not, it's a team. That's what he just said. Failure advance, look to who did it. As if there's one person, you can give it to them. When there is a take, there must be a loss of ball. I guess I said that verbatim. Face-offs. Face-offs, we kind of touched on the ground balls. It's a face-off win can only be accredited to the two people who started with their sticks back-to-back in the center of the field. That does not mean that they're the one who gets the ground ball, but they're the only ones who can get a win or a win, and someone has to get a loss. The ground ball can go to anybody, anywhere, or on a technical, there could be no ground ball, but somebody needs a win and somebody needs a loss unless the quarter ends. And it can only be the two people whose sticks were back-to-back. Yeah. So if you get a ground ball, you win. So at the end of a quarter, if they pick it up, they have the ball, but they don't get a shot, they don't get an offensive possession, they still get the win. So if you have the ball, if you can make a lacrosse move, if you determine they have a ground ball, they still win the face-off. It doesn't mean that you have to go all the way down to have an offensive possession of called by a referee.
Okay, you covered that earlier.
So yeah, them calling release does not mean the referee's signal possession has no influence on the statistical determination of face-off wins and loss. A face-off must have a ground ball. That's not true. Technical face-offs or timeouts,
Or end of time.
end of games. Face-off must have a winner unless it's the end of a quarter or the game. That's
Yes.
true. If there's a flag penalty, it goes to the other team. The other team gets the win. You know, a lot of people don't think of it that way, but a flag down is basically a technical win. Okay, that's the end of the NCAA manual. The one thing I want to say before I go into this is there has been a change this year as it relates to flag down situations. Section 5, or I think New York State, all of New York State, is now going halfway to the college rule, which is in a flag down situation, play will not stop until the team that the flag is against gains possession of the ball or play is stopped for another reason. Going out of bounds, a goal, a shot. Play will continue, even if it hits the ground, even if they leave the box, even if they do all these other things, it's going to continue until the team that has the foul against them gains possession or the play is stopped. Or play is
Or
stopped.
there's a second penalty,
Or there's a second.
or there's a second flag.
Because at that point, they're more worried about safety. So, the thing to keep in mind as statisticians is that ground ball, the ground ball that stops the flag, is not a credited ground ball because your team does not gain possession as a result of it. You're only stopping the flag. So the defenseman's going to pick that up, play's going to stop, somebody's going to flag, and he's going to think he gets a ground ball, and he doesn't because your team doesn't get the ball as a result of it. This is the stat sheet that Paul and I developed when I used to take stats a lot more efficiently. We recommend it. We think it's useful. I'm going to quickly go over how to use it. It's available for download online. You can use whatever you want. Those books that the coaches sometimes get are sometimes very difficult to track stats in because you have to remember where players are as opposed to watching the game. So Paul and I developed this sheet, which is used as instances of something happened and then summarized later, as opposed to putting hash marks, finding the person and then putting a hash mark in something. So teams are developed into two sides. Usually people do the white team as their team, although you don't have to, and the gray is the opposing team. Put the names of the teams at the top. Clears goes first. So a clear, when they start a clear, you put a tick in the top box, and when it's successful, you put a tick in the bottom box. Now, as opposed to having to remember to do a clear at the end, you start it and finish it. Ones that are blank just show that they were failed. So in this situation, they had 4 successful clears and 3 failed clears. Okay, shooting is the next thing. Every time somebody takes a shot, it gets its own line item. So as opposed to having to find 11 in 2 different situations for taking shots, every time he takes a shot, you get a new line. So in the top line, this tells me that number 5 took a shot. Nothing else happened. It was a missed shot. Okay? The next line says 11 took a shot. This time it was on cage. And not only was it on cage, it was a goal. An assist happened for number 3, and the time was at 9:43. So that tells me that the first shot is a miss, the second shot is a goal. The third shot, 11 now takes another shot. This one was on cage, but it was not a goal. This means that the gray goalie made a save. Okay? Now we have a shot from 17, that's a goal, a shot from 3, that's a goal, and a missed shot from number 1.
3 is
So,
a man-up goal.
this is a man-up goal. So, now, instead of having to find 6 different places to mark down who scored, especially on the opposing team, which is often harder because you don't know where they are. You get to learn where your guys are, you don't learn where they are. You literally can just write a number and know what happened and be back to watching the game. Ground balls are the same way. Every time somebody has a ground ball, all you do is put their number. So it's very simple. You don't have to find where they came from. You just put the next number down on the line.
Was it a
Circles.
gray one or a white one?
Yeah, was it a gray one or what? Circles I use to denote face-off wins. And that more comes from my coaches liking to know that. So I would, anytime our team would have a face-off ground ball, I would circle it, and it was very easy for my coach to see this player is very good on their wings, or it's always the guy taking the face-off who's getting it, or it's always this guy who's getting it. And that helps out. That's why some are circles. Penalties, list the time on the clock, the person, the jersey number of the person doing it, what they did, and how long the penalty's for. In running time scenarios, I only put this in because a lot of times you guys are also running the bench. If you're running time, the penalty starts when play resumes, and the penalty also becomes running time. Takes and loss of balls, we make it so you can track both. So this is 17 white taking it from 13 gray. So these are actually the loss of ball stats for the gray side, but that lets you say if there's a mismatch of some kind. Goalie time, it's important to track how often a goalie is in during a quarter. One of the things that I mentioned using is taking a whole line and just making it the goalie change, so that it's very easy to tell on your sheets which shots are attributed to which goalie. Face-offs, again, are split side. White for the white team, gray for the gray team. The winner gets circled. I use T for technicals. And that's a very quick summary. If you want to use that and haven't seen it used before, I can work with you and kind of talk about anything else. Here's kind of what a full game would look like.
This part becomes important. As soon as the game's over, please let us know the score. It can be automated. If you have access to the software, you can do it from your phone. You can enter the score on your phone. Otherwise, you can send a text message, and Kyle and I and others may monitor it. We'll enter it from wherever we are.
One of the things I like to mention is that phone actually isn't answered. It automatically just gets routed to our email. So you're either going to send a text or leave a message. There isn't really a
Nobody's going to talk to you. Nobody, on game day, nobody's going to talk to you. As information shows up over the time period, the website automatically gets updated. So as soon as you put the score in, as soon as it goes in the software, the pages all show the score. So the front page shows the score, and the team pages show. As soon as you put in the quarter scores, the score by quarters, it shows up automatically. Whether you send them to us and we put them in, or you do them themselves. The scoring table creates the graph you can see on there. The series history shows up for how you've played against that team. And as you enter the player data, that all shows up on their player pages, on the stat pages, on the whole piece. So as you enter data, the website automatically gets updated. What we ask is that after, on the same day or later the day after you've entered the score, send in the stats. Please don't wait till the next day. Nobody's as interested the next day. If you have a special interest in the game, somebody made a big, made their 100th score, somebody scored on their birthday, somebody broke a school record, something you think should be noted, if you send that in, it's very likely we'll find a way to get it posted on the website. The more you tell us, the better it is. You give us a lot of stats, you give us a scoring table and some anecdotal stuff, you're likely to get a story on the next the front page the next day. But when that story and data comes out, take a look at it the next day, because there may be an error. There is a special page for statisticians on the features page on BLAX 5. On the features page, there is an item there that says how to get to it. So all you have to remember is it's on the features page. There you'll find the PowerPoint from tonight. You'll find the links to the manuals, the NCAA manuals, the sheets that Kyle's been talking about. There's an Excel file that can help you add things up if you wish. And all this other data is there too.